I bring you greetings in the matchless name of my Lord God and Savior, Jesus Christ. Hello, this is the Honey Badger bringing you the news and views update for the beginning of February. The first week of February as we're facing an oncoming winter storm, a great opportunity for all of my fellow believers to get out and bless their neighbors and help them shovel out their walkways and driveways, or use your snow blower when you do your yard, your property. Do the people on either side of you. You've already got your machine out there. You're already using it. It won't take you but a couple minutes. And it's a great way to show the love of Christ in a concrete and practical manner. It's just a good way to be a good person, a nice person, and a good neighbor. That's not even in the news, excuse me, and views update today. Today we're going to concentrate on three areas: psychedelic drugs, an update on the avian bird flu, and I could put / swine flu, China will deal with the ongoing drought. So let's just jump in to these recent headlines that I haven't mentioned before. And if you've been watching any of these updates, and I really encourage people to go to the Honey Badger Bob YouTube channel or on BitChute or Rumble and watch the presentations that I have already done. I've got about half a dozen of them now dealing with famine, drought, pestilence, warfare, the attack on animals and by animals. All of these things have been dealt with. Psychedelic drugs. I've got many reports on these, and these are updates on what's already taking place. And if you hang with me, stick with me, and follow what I'm saying over the next couple of weeks, you're going to see how all of this ties together. And when you do, you're going to marvel at the perfect storm humanity is facing right now. And it's only going to get worse. Sad to say, but that's the way it is. We move on. Let's begin with the psychedelic updates for 2022. Now, as I've mentioned before in some teachings, and I have more teachings concerning psychedelic drugs that I'm working on, really thinking about how to present the material, because I used to use a lot of psychedelic drugs. And at that point in my life, I found them very beneficial. And so I want to be very careful how I present this information, because it is a potentially sweet seduction. And it's certainly something that the enemy uses. And I grew up through the whole decade of the 60s and the 70s, and I was right there in it, unfortunately. But God delivered me from it without too much lasting damage, I believe. So I look back now from 1970 to 2020, and I'm amazed at what I see. Here are some recent headlines. Ketamine assisted therapy could help heavy drinkers stay sober longer. See, I got ahead of myself. The four motivations that the enemy uses against humanity to suck us into this use of psychedelics, which is actually sorcery, simple pagan sorcery, which is decried and cursed and is an abomination in the Bible. But there are four things that the enemy uses to get people into psychedelics and to get psychedelics into people. Number one is the mental health motive for legalization, because mental health issues are, as you know, burgeoning because of COVID and people being forced to stay with their loved ones and deal with one another. A lot of issues of depression and anxiety, and of course, because of what's going on, people are legitimately concerned, especially those that don't know the Bible and the prophetic outlay and don't understand these things from a biblical worldview. Yeah, there's a lot of mental health issues going on. And so, why not, if there's a psychedelic drug that can help people mentally, well, it'd be inhumane for us not to legalize psychedelic drugs. If it's going to help even one person, then it's worth it. Well, let's continue. First ever human trial confirms magic mushrooms are safe to treat mental health patients. Now, isn't this amazing? The first ever human trial confirms magic mushrooms are safe to treat mental health patients. Well, I happen to know a little something about psilocybin mushrooms since I used to grow them. They're far from safe. In fact, if you do the research, and I'll go into this when I do more of an expose on the whole psychedelic movement, do the research, you're going to find that over half of the people that take psychedelic drugs have a hellish, totally frightening, abject terror and horror is released in their lives for many, many hours, and it may be lifelong or long lasting. It just depends on the individual. So to say that you do one human trial, it's the first human trial. This isn't like they've done a dozen or 100 human trials, and now after 100 human trials, we've come up with it. No, they've done the first ever trial, and immediately they're safe to treat mental health patients. Still, now next headline. How psychedelic drugs can be used for mental health. In the 60s and 70s, psychedelic drugs sent people to the insane asylums. Been there, done that. But see, this is the mental health motive. It's good for people. It's good for your mental health. And look at the next one. First, we see psychedelic drugs can be used to help mental health. Magic mushrooms are safe to treat mental health. Psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, in 10 or 25 milligram doses, has no short-term or long-term detrimental effects in healthy people. Okay, do you see what I see? Read the first 3 headlines. They're using psilocybin to treat people that are not mentally healthy, that are unstable in some way mentally. Now they're saying you can take the same drug, either short or long term, in healthy people. So it's good for mentally disturbed people, and it has no detrimental effects for healthy people, whoever we are. Which is going to, again, if it's good for mental health and it doesn't hurt healthy people, then obviously we need to legalize this very harmless and beneficial compound to the population of the world. And even the conservative state of Missouri, terminally ill patients in Missouri can seek psychedelic treatments under right to try law. Now, 3 weeks ago, I think I mentioned this in a previous one, looking down here at my iPad, therapists hail legalization of medicinal psychedelic drugs, the Calvary Herald. Well, let's look now at the decriminalization for profit motives going on in 2022. Sensible policy on psychedelic drugs is growing more common. Oh, you betcha. I've already covered it all over America. You can go to so many, I can go to Ann Arbor in my state of Michigan, I can go to Detroit in the state of Michigan, and find all types of psychedelic mushrooms and plants legally. Legally. And as you know, you can go online and buy everything legally. So a sensible policy, yes, is growing more common because they're more commonplace. Bill decriminalizing psychedelic mushrooms under review in Virginia. Magic mushroom companies are on NASDAQ now. According to The Guardian, that's a recipe for a bad trip. Oh, but several of these companies are openly traded now. And frankly, if I was interested in making money, I would be investing in cannabis companies, hemp companies, and psychedelic mushrooms companies. If I just simply was interested in making profit and plant-based food industries. Oh yeah, that's where the money is, and the smart money's on that. if you're a worldling. I don't love this world, and I don't love money. So this is what's happening right here so far in 2022. How many articles? 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I didn't share them all. So probably a dozen articles already in the first month of the year. Avian bird flu reports. I just did a news and views on the avian bird flu, and I have now pages of headlines. Not just a few, many. And this ought to concern all of us. Bird flu discovered at Dutch farm. And I put these in red. Over 160,000 chickens to be slaughtered. Human cases of bird flu detected in China. Oh yeah, the H1N5, H1N6, different H3N2, all the different bird flus, pathogenic, and are shifting over to humans. Public, why? Why, Bob, China, hey, can we trust the report? Well, why would they issue this? Public warning issued over bird flu outbreak after swans found dead in Birmingham Park. Other articles say if you find a dead bird, men, women, and children, do not pick up the bird. Why? If it's died because of this, you could catch it, apparently. Highly pathogenic avian influenza confirmed in Namibia. Bird flu hampering rearing of food and jobs in Ghana. South Korea culls 427,000 chickens after new bird. These are new reports. These are not the ones from 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago or even last week. These are new reports. Bird flu discovered at Dutch farm. 216,000 chickens to be culled. The Bono region. 8,400 animals infected with bird flu destroyed. They got 160,000, 427,000, 216,000, 8,400. Let's see, 6, 7, 750,000 chickens killed just in this recent avian bird flu pandemic, which is global and which is spreading rapidly. Now, along with bird flu, let me give you the swine flu updates thus far in 2022. African swine fever detected in the southern Cape of Africa. African swine flu detected in Thailand. I covered this 2 weeks ago when the Thai farmers are beginning to eat alligator meat, and it's continuing to spread. Italy takes further measures to contain swine fever outbreak. Further measure means killing all the pigs. ASF continues to spread in Germany. African swine fever blamed for soaring pork prices. Any real reason why bacon is 7, 8, 9, and a lot more in different places in America per pound? Bacon now is as expensive as steak in some places. I've reported on that. And lastly, African swine fever, new strain is emerged. So we've already had the very deadly strain, which is killing, and we have to kill off all the pigs. China's lost over 75% of their pigs due to this, and the African armyworm devastated their crops. You see, China understands very well and sees a long way off and plans. When their Communist Party makes plans, they don't make plans for next year. Oh, they do, but they make 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, 100-year plans, and they steady work at it. Well, let's continue on. What else is happening in 2022? The faux food industry marches on. Now we have plant-based bacon. Not going there, folks. I will barely eat turkey bacon. Bacon is made from pork. Chorizo sausage and chunks. Here's what this Chicago-based company brings to South Africa. This startup just raised $5.2 million to make vegan lamb and other wild game. Plant-based meat market worth $8.3 billion by 2025. Key players are Beyond Beef, Meat, and Impossible Foods, Inc., both of which you see prominently sold in your Kroger, Piggly Wiggly, Safeway, mass market stores to this day right now. And they are taking up more and more shelf space with more and more items, because at first it was just like kind of a hamburgerish looking sort of stuff, a slurry. Oh, they've gotten very sophisticated. Bacon, chorizo, lamb. Redefine Meats raises $135 million for its 3D plant-based steak. McDonald's came out with a McPlant burger. Well received in many places around the world, sold in America now. Above Food and UMNAMI team to introduce whole cut plant-based meat and fish analogs. Fish analogs. Doesn't that just give you the munchies? Man, plant-based meat and fish analogs. Guys, I could have put up another slide on the insect-based foods progress in 2022, but I may wait another couple weeks, keep you hanging a little bit. Now, why do you think that startup companies can GoFundMe and flash mob and do everything and raise millions and get capital investors in Wall Street to gamble on this very, very new, if you will, well, it's an industry. 5.2 million raised. 135 million raised. What do they know? What do these companies know? Why is it that the pork and beef and chicken producers are also doubling down and putting millions into plant-based products? You'd think they're cutting their own throats. Do they see something that we don't see on the horizon? Do they know things that you and I don't know because we don't have our finger really on the pulse of agriculture like we should? We don't know where our food comes from. We don't know how it's grown. We don't know how it gets to us. Now we're learning about the just-in-time delivery and supply chain. Oh my, that brings me to the next slide. The continuing global famine. Now, I hope that you are very, very concerned over this first headline. China hoards 60% of global food supply, controlling food prices for food shortage of 2022. Now, yes, China lost a lot of their pork and a lot of their grains due to African swine flu, the African armyworm, floods and drought and inclement weather. So yes, and 1 out of 4 people on the face of the planet are of Chinese derivation. So on one level, it makes sense that a huge, largest nation in the world would be buying a lot of food for their people. Well, that's the best construction. You don't understand the Communist Chinese Party and their desire to be the hegemon, not only in their region, but the world. They have nothing less than a plan, and they're working their plan to become the world ruler. Now, they're not going to become the world ruler. China is very much a paper tiger, but right now, they are doing all they can as a nation. And we, as Americans and everyone else, ought to be paying attention. China has 4, 5, 6,000 years of recorded history of weather and meteorological events and of their dynasties rising and falling, and they see the writing on the wall. They know what's happening geologically, astrologically, climatologically, and they are hoarding food, and all the food they can buy, they are buying. Uganda is an example, and I've warned the people of Uganda about the Chinese. They're taking over Uganda and much of Africa. They are buying up tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of acres of farming land from the poor African nations. Now, they're doing this not to grow food for those nations. They grow food there and they ship the food back to China. And they use the African people as basic slave labor, pay them very little, and often import masses of Chinese people from their overpopulated cities to work the farms. And then they send them the produce back to their nation. Well, this is ongoing all over Africa. Uganda's been hit heavily. China is so influential and has so much power in Uganda. They had the nerve, the temerity to tell the Ugandan people, their government, to begin to teach Chinese in the public school. That's what a conqueror does. A guest, a visitor, a friend would come and learn your language, not demand that you, a minority, learn their language. That should have set off huge warning bells in the Ugandan leadership, and it is. So they're hoarding 60% of global food supply. Guess what? When we in the West and every place else in the world runs out of food, we're going to have to run to Pharaoh. We're going to have to go to China. That's what they want. That's what they hope. Let's keep going. Global organizations predict mass starvation amid historic rises in fertilizer cost. You probably have no idea, and I hope you'll look into it now, about the global rise in the cost of fertilizers, the chemicals, the production, the transportation. So, what does this mean? No fertilizers mean worse crop yields. Little fertilizer means reduced crop yields, more bugs, more loss. The crops, unfortunately, that are grown today are highly dependent on fertilization, and without it, they do not do well. I encourage everyone listening to buy organic heirloom seeds, non-GMO heirlooms. Go buy a little seed vault and have that for the future. I've done several presentations on the Honey Badger Bob YouTube channel on the 4 strikes of God, the divine global strikes that we're undergoing now. Famine and drought, starvation, is one of the strikes God has always used on rebellious humanity. Get with the program. Global organizations, plural, predict mass starvation. It's happening now. FAO, global food prices rise to the highest level over the past decade. You have not seen anything yet. Hide and watch. Hide and watch, and then you'll remember what the honey badger said. You have not seen anything yet when it comes to food and energy costs. Drought worsens in wheat-growing plains. I'm going to read this. I don't know if I can pull this article up, but I'll have to pull this up on my iPad. I'm sorry, I want to take a minute to pull this up because it's important. This is in the, go to the Successful Farmers website. Put them in here. Successful farming, it's important. I want you to hear, because we have a tendency to think things are going well here in the States, and let's see, all right, it says, and then see, drought worsens. Yeah, here we go. Drought worsens in wheat-growing plains. Let me quote from this article. Let's just read the first paragraph. Because we don't realize this. Guys, I'm not putting you down or myself, but we don't realize a lot of stuff. Our minds are elsewhere. We're doing a lot of other things. We're thinking about stuff. We just tend to go, we go from day to day, and every time you go to the store, you basically can get what you want, so you don't think about it. All right, listen to this, please. A long-running drought that covers more than half of the continental United States, mostly west of Mississippi, worsened in the central and southern plains last week. The heart of U.S. winter wheat production, said the government's drought monitor on Thursday. In Kansas, the #1 winter wheat state, 31% of the crop was rated at being in very poor or poor condition. 31% of the wheat crop in America is poor or very poor. Now, can it still be used? Remains to be seen. We don't know that America's been in a drought for over a decade, but it has been. And that's the judgment of God on this nation. Fertilizer prices may jump 70% with other input costs rising. Farmers will feel the pinch. Oh, they feel it first. Guess who feels it next and harder? It trickles down. Fertilizer crisis means higher prices for every plate of food. That's Bloomberg. I left off the G. These are reputable news reporting agencies. These aren't some conspiracy blog like Snopes. You don't see me citing Snopes for any of these articles, and hopefully you never will. I don't trust them. But do you see? Fertilizer is gone through the roof. They say, oh, it may go 70%. In many places, it's doing more than that. Look up, go on Google, look up the use of human excrement and going back to using animal dungs for fertilization. Well, that's pretty good fertilization for some crops that need certain organic compounds that are in feces, like a lot of nitrogen. But otherwise, in human feces really cannot be readily used for a year if you're safe. A lot of places just throw it right on your crops. That's why you go overseas. Many places you do not eat fresh fruit sold in the marketplace. You got to wash that or maybe never eat it. But that's going on. Look it up. Fertilizer crisis means higher prices for every plate of food. And that's not here just in America. That is all over the world. We are the best house in a bad neighborhood. All of the things I'm talking about trickle down and hit us last. But they're hitting us now, and I hope you're paying attention. I don't know what this is. Lechon. Sounds like Lico. Lechon as emergency food. Pineapple waste for diet developed by universities. So the food waste that you used to throw away, they're now trying to be creative and saying, how can we, gee, that rind of an orange, what can we do? What can I turn that into a steak or a veggie burger? Well, you got to be creative when your people are starving or going to starve. China is hoarding all of this food because they've seen the writing on the wall. They know what's coming. More food to be sold past before date. Grocery trader. In other words, the cans used to be pulled off the shelves when they hit that date. Not anymore. And honestly, okay, here's a dirty little secret. As a prepper, let me tell you, when you get a can from the grocery and you look at the top and it says used by March 20th, 2022, or Best Buy, March 2022. That's a lie. That's a load of crap. It may be it's at its optimal freshness, but the produce and product in that can, if it's been canned properly, will last well over a year or 2 or 5. It just depends on what's in the can. Do your research. They last a lot longer. Well, why did they put that on the cans then, Bob? To screw you? To make money? And to have you throw away perfectly good food. Now they're kind of waking up, realizing, oh, I guess we better keep that stuff on the shelf. Why? Because they don't have any other cans to replace it with. It's one thing if I sweep off a whole row of stuff, because I'm putting up the new stuff with the next few months goodbye date. Throw those cans away. Now, that was all a con. But more food to be sold. The past before date. Not so big a deal on that, but it is a sign of what's happening. And I'm a dot connector, and